We just put 4 data analysts head to head to see how they would solve the same exact task using Python, Power BI, SQL, and Excel. 4 experts, 4 tools, 1 winner. Welcome back to the Data Drill Showdown. All right, time for data drill number 7, turning bullish. The task, find the most recent golden cross using 5 years of historical stock market data. Now, a golden cross is a common signal that we're entering a bull market, and it's defined as the moment the short-term moving average crosses from below to above the long-term moving average. Now, to do that, you're going to need to calculate 3 fields: the 50-day moving average, the 200-day moving average, and a binary flag to mark any instance of a golden cross. Now, if you want to play along, pause the video here and grab the dataset for free at mavenanalytics.io/data-drills. It's a great way to sharpen your skills, learn some new tools, and compare solutions from incredible data pros around the world. All right, time to introduce our showdown competitors. Up first, we've got Chris Bruehl, our Python powerhouse and defending champion, trying to score back-to-back wins. Next, we've got Aaron Parry, the DAX-ecutioner himself, tackling this one with Power BI. In the number 3 slot, we've got John Poller, the SQL baller, with ChatGPT as his co-pilot. And last but not least, we'll see if Enrique can pull off an underdog story and take home his first title for Excel. So that's our lineup for today. Let's start the showdown.
All right, so let's go ahead and solve this data drill, the golden cross, using Python and pandas. To get myself up to speed with my colleagues who have already loaded their data in, I've imported the pandas library, I've read in our CSV file, and I've parsed the date column to make sure it's treated as a date time. I've stored this in the variable SPDF. If we take a look at our SPDF data frame, what we'll see is just 2 columns. It's a very simple data set, time series with a closing price for SPY on every day. The tricky part about this problem is the time series logic, which fortunately pandas is very good at. So let's take our SPDF. I'm going to use the assign method. This allows me to create multiple columns in the same method call. And we need to create 3 columns here: a 50-day moving average, a 200-day moving average, and our golden cross column based on the relationship between those 2 prior columns. So to get our 50-day moving average, which we'll call MA50, I first need to create a lambda function here. This just allows me to reference the data frame that's being created by assign. It's a little bit tricky, but once you get used to it, very useful. So we'll do d.close. And then to calculate moving averages in Python, we'll use the rolling method. So rolling, where our window length is equal to 50. And our min periods, this just says don't calculate a metric until we have at least 50 rows. Then we'll calculate the mean of these rolling periods. So MA50, you'll notice is null for our first rows, which makes sense. We told it not to calculate it. But by the end of our data set, we've successfully calculated a moving average. For example, on October 27th, our 50-day moving average for SPY, the S&P 500, was $658.58. So now that we have this logic established, we can go ahead and create our MA200 column, which is just going to be replacing any instance of 50 with 200 that we just did. We'll say a 200-day window, 200 minimum periods. On October 27th, our 200-day moving average for the S&P 500 was 607, less than our 50-day moving average. And finally, the trickiest part of this problem is calculating the golden cross. We're just going to call this column GC. Once again, we're going to calculate a lambda function here. But we need 2 logical conditions. On the given row, the 50-day moving average has to be greater than the 200-day moving average. But on the prior row, the 50-day moving average has to be less than or equal to the 200-day moving average to show where it changed. So to get our 50-day moving average, we'll do MA50 is greater than D.MA200. That indicates on the same row, our 50-day moving average is greater than, but we have to look at the prior row now. And so to do that, we'll use the shift method, which will shift forward a column in our data frame by the amount we tell it to. So D.MA50 shift 1, we're just looking at the prior period, is less than or equal to our data frame's moving average 200 column shifted by 1 as well. And so the last thing that we want to do is make sure this is calculated as an integer rather than a Boolean. And now we have a 0, 1 column for GC. Let's see when this value equals 1. So we're going to do GC equals 1. and we see that there were 2 golden cross events. The most recent one, which is what we're looking for, occurred on July 1st, 2025 with a value of 617.65. So if we go ahead and plug this in and click submit, we can see that that shift and rolling method is how we solve the golden cross using Python.
All right, Python setting the bar extremely high yet again. Such an elegant solution using the pandas library and really just a few lines of code to get the job done. That's definitely going to be tough to beat, but let's see if Aaron has what it takes to top that solution with Power BI.
All right, so Power BI was defeated last time. We're going to put our rally caps on and see if we can get that title back. So first things first, we've got to add in our fields. So we'll add in our close cost and the date. This looks great. And from here, I want to challenge myself, and I'm actually going to use the new DAX visual calculations here, and I'm going to create a moving average. So the first moving average that we want to create is based off of, again, the sum of close, and we want to look at a 50-day moving average. So we'll call this moving average underscore or something like 50. Lock that in, and we'll create another visual calculation using moving average again. And this time, this is going to be our 200-day moving average. Again, based off of the sum of the close, and our window size is 200. Awesome. So we've got those 2 columns here. We can see in our chart here that there's a couple of times where our 50 and our 200-day moving averages intersect. So now we need to create a calculation for that binary 1-0 flag. So what we want to do is add in a secondary y-axis calculation. We want a new visual calculation here. And we're going to do a little bit of custom calculating here. So this is going to be golden cross. And we're going to start off with a couple of variables. And these variables are going to determine just the previous day. So previous moving average 50. And we want to calculate our 50-day moving average in a modified filter context where we offset by 1 day, right? And we kind of want to duplicate this one again for 200. So if we do Alt-Shift down, we can update our references. 200, and then we'll call this MA200. Awesome, return. So here we're going to use an if statement with some error checking just to handle any cases where there might be a 0 value. So if not is blank, and this is going to be our 200-day moving average. So if our moving 200-day average isn't blank, and our 50-day moving average is greater than our 200-day moving average, and our previous 50-day moving average is less than or equal to our previous 200-day moving average, then return a 1, otherwise 0. So we'll close that out. And what this does, because we've added it to the second axis, is it gives us these little flag dates here. And it's kind of tough to hover over this. So let's add in a zoom slider. All right, go back to format. We want to add in that zoom slider. Perfect. And we'll zoom in on the latest date here and format mode. And you can see on July 1st, we cross it. And the closing, the price at close was $617.65. So we'll jump over to our solution, $617.65. And that's how you solve the data drill with Power BI.
Okay, I don't know about you guys, but I was not expecting to see that approach from Aaron. Great use case for Power BI's new visual calculations, and bonus points for adding that sweet zoom slider in there as well. And hey, if you're enjoying the video so far, take a sec to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep bringing you brand new content just like this. And if you solved the drill with Python or Power BI on your own, drop a comment and share your solution so we can all nerd out together. All right, now things are about to get interesting. Next up, we're going to see how John is going to tackle this one with SQL, except he's going to use AI to actually produce his query. Let's see how it goes.
Here's how you're going to solve this one using SQL. I'm going to take a slightly different approach today. So we are going to go to ChatGPT, and I've already uploaded the CSV there, and I've described the table. I've given it the table name, and I've given it the columns. So it's ready to write a query for me. And basically, I'm going to just dictate into ChatGPT and see how it does. I might have to massage it a little bit, but let's go. So I'll allow access to the mic, and here we go. So all right, you've got this table. I'd like you to write a select statement that is going to return both the date column and the close column, and then add 3 new columns. The first new column is going to be 50-day moving average. I want you to create it so that column is null if we don't have 50 days of data. So start that data on the 50th date. Before that, it should be null. Same idea for another new column called 200-day moving average. I want that null until we have 200 days of data. So handle that probably with a case statement. And then finally, I want you to create a binary column for a golden cross. So to define that binary column, it'll be a 1 on a golden cross day, and it'll be a 0 on all other days. And a golden cross day is when the 50-day moving average moves above the 200-day moving average, but the previous day it was not above the 200-day average. All right, let's see what you can do here. All right, so it's going to be processing that right now. It's usually pretty quick. Honestly, the transcription of my voice takes a little bit of time, but I just find that when you have a long prompt to be a little bit easier to just talk to ChatGPT. So let's see, it's thinking. And in some cases, you could just do these things faster in SQL yourself. In this case, it's a pretty simple task, but it's also kind of a decent chunk of code. See, so like these case statements where I wanted it to be nullable before certain dates. So let's take a look, and I'm just going to pop this in here, and let's see if it runs. So like, did it actually select the right table? So I'm going to take a quick look. So it's creating a CTE called MA. It's selecting date, close. It's got this case statement basically to null it when it's doesn't have 50 perfect, and otherwise it's pulling the average of the 49 preceding rows and current row. It looks perfect to me. And then it does the same thing for the 200-day moving average. So it actually did a great job. And it's selecting from close, so it got the table name right. I did give it the table name before. A lot of times, if you just upload a CSV or you're asking for this logic, you might have to tweak. So important, if you're prompting, give it the table name, give it the column names, give it as much context as you can, and it'll do a better job. So let's take a look and just see what that looks like and if it runs. So yeah, so we're nulled for the first 50 on the 50-day moving average. We are nulled for, looks like the first 200 there on the 200-day moving average. And then let's see if we get any golden cross days flagged here. And it looks like, just eyeballing how many actually are here. So I'm not seeing any yet. So that part, it may have actually not done. So let's take a look at what it has here. So it's in the final one. It's saying this big long case statement. So when the 50-day moving average is not null, that's good. So it's basically saying if we don't have that data, then we're going to flag it as a 0. When the 200-day moving average is not null, so again, if it is null, it's going to go into that else. Previous moving. So all of those, okay, perfect. Yeah, so it's grabbing the previous days. So it's basically saying when these aren't null. And then and moving average 50 is greater than moving average 200. And previous moving average 50 is less than or equal to previous moving average 200. But then let's just see. I'm just going to put this having. Maybe there were some under there because that logic looks good to me. I haven't seen what is wrong with it yet. And so I'm going to put in a where that case statement, I'm just going to see equals 1. See if any rows actually show up. Oh, it does have a couple golden crosses. Okay, so let's see. I don't know the answer to this one yet. It's the first time I'm doing this, but so it says there's 2 golden crosses, and let's just see if the 50 is indeed ahead of the 200. So we can assume it just popped above it. That sounds reasonable without seeing the data from the day before because they're so close. And same thing there. Yeah, the close is much higher. So it's pulling that short-term average above the long-term average. That actually makes sense. Let's take a look. So the validation question is, what was the close price on the last date? So it'll be this, 617.75. Let's take a look. It says not quite right. All right. So, oh, I just typed it in wrong. 617.65 is the actual price there, right? There we go. So I actually just typed it in wrong. Perfect. Okay, cool. So pretty awesome. ChatGPT knew how to do this, and I had to prompt it by giving it table names, column names. I gave it a little bit of direction how I wanted to handle null. So like I explained that nuance to it, but it actually nailed it on the first try. I found that single table stuff with ChatGPT is like pretty awesome. When there's joins involved, things like that, when you have to clean up data, it might not perform quite as well. But this I thought was a good example that we could try it out, and it really crushed it. So great stuff. That's how you solve this in SQL with ChatGPT.
All right, so obviously a very different tactic from John this time around, using AI to generate the code instead of writing the query from scratch. And in this case, ChatGPT actually nailed it. It one-shotted the solution, so technically he could have stopped the clock much sooner. But I actually think this is a really strong and realistic demonstration of what it means to use AI as a data professional. It's about smart prompting to give the model the context it needs. It's about leveraging your technical expertise to spot check the query and QA the output. And ultimately, it's about combining the unique strengths of humans and AI to work smarter together. Awesome example of how generative AI can be a total productivity multiplier in the hands of a skilled practitioner. And by the way, if you want to learn more about that, we just launched some brand new courses on AI literacy, prompt engineering, and critical thinking. So go ahead and check out the links in the description if you want to start learning for free. All right, on to our final challenger, the underdog of the data world. Let's see if Enrique can work some magic and pull out a win for Excel.
All right, let's see if we can get the first win for Excel here. Now, Chris, before you start the timer, I do just want to point out I have set up this chart here. It's not going to help me solve the drill. It's just going to help me visualize the results so that you can see exactly how those moving averages interact and how those golden crosses are formed. Again, just for reference. So let's get started. All right, so we first need to calculate the 50-day moving average. Now, you can just go down to row 50 and do the average of the previous 50 cells and then just apply that down. You'd have to do the same for the 200. It gets the job done. It's just not very automated. So let's see if we can do better than that. We're actually going to use the offset function instead. So I'm going to do the average, offset. This is a volatile function, so it's not always ideal. But in this scenario, the data set is small. We should be just fine. Now, the reference is the close price for today. And I'm just going to go ahead and fix the column. We do want it to move down. We do not want it to move over. Now, we don't need to move any rows down or any columns over. And the height, well, we know we want a 50-day moving average, so that's going to be the height. Let's just select the 50 here and fix the row. We don't want that to move down. We do want it to move over. Now, the way offset works, the height actually goes from your reference down. We actually want it to go up, so I'm going to multiply that by -1. So we get today and the previous 50 days before that, including today. Close offset, close the average, press enter. We get a ref error. That's because there are no cells to populate those previous 50. But as I apply that down and scroll, you'll see that as we pass the 50 mark, these start to calculate and they populated in our chart here. Now for the 200-day moving average, again, because this is now automated, apply over, down, and again, let's scroll. You'll see that as we reach 200, these start to populate, and we can see the 50 crosses here, crosses up here as well. So we should have 2 golden crosses. Let's just compute those. And the formula is simple. We just need to check if yesterday the 50 was under, today it's over. So it's 2 conditions. We want and this is less than that, and this is greater than that. If that's true, let's just return a 1, otherwise a 0. Press enter. Again, we get ref whenever we don't have both of them calculated. You could take care of those with an if error if you wanted to. For now, these are just fine. You'll see we flagged the 2 golden crosses. Now let's just take a look at those. Looks like we have these 2 on these dates, this being the most recent. So to answer the validation question, what is the close price on the most recent? Well, let's just copy that, paste it right here. And there we go. That's how you solve this data drill using Excel.
Wow, incredibly strong showing from Enrique and a great example of why Excel continues to be an absolute powerhouse in the data world, especially for these types of quick ad hoc analyses. 40 years old and stronger than ever. All right, that takes us to the moment of truth. Let's pull up the results. So this was another close one with Python and Power BI pretty much on par. John's solution with SQL and ChatGPT was kind of the wild card here since it clocked in at just under 7 minutes, but could have been much faster without the extra QA. But at the end of the day, with an impressive time of only 2 minutes and 38 seconds, Excel really stole the show. Congrats, Enrique, you've officially earned the Data Drill crown. So that's a wrap for Data Drill number 7. Hope you enjoyed this one and picked up some new skills along the way. If you learned something new, drop us a comment, share this with your coworkers, or better yet, take a crack at the drill yourself and let us know how you solved it. And if you want to build data and AI skills like these and learn directly from the experts you see in this video, head to Maven Analytics, create a personalized learning plan, and get started for free. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss out. We'll see you in the next one.